My yolk! Now we've all dropped an egg yolk in soy sauce before, but have you ever wondered what would happen if you left it in there overnight? Well, that's actually a technique called Shoyuzuke. Marinating egg yolks in soy sauce can both enhance their flavor and impart a jammy texture. And how do we use Shoyuzuke? Well, today we'll be using it to make delicious onigiri, and to better display our yolks, we'll serve our rice balls open-faced. Essentially, we're going to expose our balls. To hit that sweet spot between jammy and saucy, we'll need to marinate for 12 to 24 hours, which means start the night before. So let's make like they did in the 1950s and separate these yolks from the whites. To do this, we need 3 containers, one for whites, one for yolks, and one for separating. The reason we don't crack directly into the whites is in case a yolk breaks, it could ruin the whole batch. For the marinade, all we will be using is soy sauce. You can add things like salt and sugar, but I would try this the first time and adjust the taste the next time. Fill it just enough to submerge the yolks. And because my doctor says I have high blood pressure, a splash of low sodium soy sauce. Now I'm going to teach you to break an egg using one hand. This frees up your second hand to record yourself teaching people to break an egg using one hand. And if they do the same, we've got ourselves a pyramid scheme, but with eggs. So 2 fingers on top, 1 on the bottom, and hit against a flat surface. You'll want to hit it pretty hard. I mean, don't just, but put some force behind it, and then simply open it up. Now to actually separate the yolk, the easiest way is by hand. Simply scoop it up between your fingers and pass it back and forth, letting the white slide between the gaps. If you can, try to pinch the white string attached to the yolk, and let the yolk slide away from it. If you can't, no big deal, it's just a leftover rooster goo from conception. Now take that yolk and gently place it in the marinade. Additionally, you can pass it between the broken eggshells, or if you have a bartending kit, you can sift it using an upside-down Hawthorne strainer. But why use a toy when a hand gets the job done? Now I'm prepping a batch of 6, but I recommend 1 as an appetizer, 3 as a meal per person. Now once we finish, take a paper towel square and place it over them to weigh them down. Tuck them in like babies, even though they never got the chance to be babies. Stick your yolks in the fridge. And now for your whites, we don't actually use them in this recipe, but I like to save them for making cocktails. So blend them up using an immersion blender, or you can just use a fork, and transfer to a squeeze bottle to use soon, or freeze for later. Next day, time to make the rice. So unfortunately, there is no secret technique to making really good rice. It just comes down to using higher quality rice. Here's the brand I use. I get it from my local Asian grocery store, but it is also available on Amazon. Realistically, you need any good quality short grain rice. Many people will also recommend using a rice cooker, but that has the same issue. All the good ones are really expensive. So here's how to make it just as good on the stove. First, wash your rice. Never skip washing. A study has shown 94% of all rice is touched feces. Actually, it might have been about cash. Once it runs clear, fill the pot up to roughly your first knuckle. Just like a urinal, accuracy isn't too important. We're going to boil it down anyways. Now here's our chance to season the rice. Since it is one of the main parts of our dish, it is extra important. The general rule of thumb is 1 grain of salt per grain of rice. To calculate how much rice you have, count the grain of rice starting from the middle to the edge. Then the formula is pi r squared. That'll give you the area of the surface. Then estimate how many layers are in there, and multiply by the area of the surface. Now for the salt, we will just have to count it as it falls. 398, 797, 1195, 1592, 1991, 2388, 2786, 3184, 3582, 3980, 4379, 4779. Now bring the pot to a boil over high heat. Some white foam may form on the surface. You can skip it off using a spoon. It is optional, but I'm only giving you 1 pass between this and the white string from the yolk. If you eat both, I have some questions for you. So we are waiting for the water level to meet the top of the rice. It should look like this. Little tunnels of steam poking through. Now put on a lid and set to low. If your lid lets steam escape, put some foil between it and the pot to form a seal. Hey Siri, set timer for 12 minutes.
Set your own damn timer, you lazy
After 12 minutes, kill the heat and fluff the rice. Now normally, you can leave it in here to keep warm until you're ready, but since we need it to cool down a bit, we'll give it 5 minutes and then spread it on a plate to vent. Now once the rice is cooled enough to handle, we will form our balls. The key to shaping rice balls is always use wet hands. Every time you're about to touch your balls, wet your hands. it seems to form some sort of seal around them. As many of us learned as teenagers, water is not a lubricant. Pack the balls tightly so they can hold their shape when handled. I like my rice balls like I like my women, flat bottomed. It helps our balls brown better when we pan fry them. Now make a little nest in the middle for your yolk. The edges should be thin enough to reach the yolk in one bite. A rice-only bite of a rice ball is like a pocket-only bite of a Hot Pocket. Linty. Once you form your balls, we're ready to fry them, which technically makes them yaki onigiri. First, pull aside some marinade. Next, put a nonstick skillet over high heat and squirt in some neutral oil. Once shimmering, put in your balls. Question for you ladies, is it really cheating if he only puts his balls in? Shake to keep loose. Browning can take a little bit of time, so be patient, but also try to not let them burn. Once crispy, kill the heat and add some marinade to the skillet. Let the residual heat caramelize the soy sauce to the bottom, and carefully transfer it to a cutting board. For the black sesame, I usually take some in my hand and toss it like this. Sprinkle it like this. Repeat using some scallion. Now using a spoon, lift up a yolk and drain the marinade. Your yolk may have formed a cute little dimple. God, I wish my cheeks were yolks. Now drop it into its little nest, and it's ready to plate. Optionally garnish using some basil or whatever else you want. And may I present to you my balls. Open-faced Shoyuzuke onigiri. Gooey on top, crispy on bottom. What more could you want? Look, the egg isn't runny, but it's cascading down. Perfection. Now I can choke down 2 balls easily, but I have to offer one to my closet demon.